So now that we have animated our street and also our scooter, it's time now to animate the houses in the background. And this one is going to be a little bit more tricky than what we did for the street. Why? Because in the street looks uniform. We just have some street lines and they are repeating. However, in the houses, we have different houses, and therefore we cannot do what we've done in the street animation. So if you go back here in our code, or let's actually see first how our houses are styled here in the browser. So as we mentioned, we have this background div, and in here we have two divs, one for the back houses and one for the front houses. And they are both pretty similar. However, the back houses are just styled to be smaller because they are further away. So let's focus on the front houses. So in here we have a div of houses, and it contains 4 images of different houses. And the width of this div is taking double the viewport width. So we have 200% here. And therefore, by having that, we can do something similar to what we've done in the street, where we can add a transform and translate in the x direction, a negative value, and our houses are going to be shifted. However, we're going to have a problem here because the houses are different, unlike the street lines. So let's actually try to do it. Let's try to go here, and in our scripts, let's create one for the background. So background.mjs, and also let's not forget to import it here. And let's try to go to our streets.mjs, and let's copy what we've done here, and let's put it here in the background. However, instead of street, let's get maybe the front houses. Let's call it front houses, and this is going to live in, as we can see here, this is in houses wrapper and then houses. So we can get this like so. And now let's call this front houses animation, and let's animate front houses, and let's do the same thing, animate from 0 to -50. And if we go back here and let's refresh, as you can see, our houses are moving. However, we're going to have a problem where we are going to have this jump when our animation ends. This was not a problem in the street since, of course, as we mentioned, all the street lines are looking the same. We don't have any different houses like we do in the houses div. So we're going to need to do something. And what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate these houses, and we're going to have 2 animations. So let me explain by going here. And let's imagine that this white box is our viewport, and this div is the div that contains our houses. So we have our houses here in yellow, and the div is taking double the viewport width. And what we're doing now is we are animating this from here to here and then repeating, and therefore we have this jump. But what we need to do is we need to make our house look infinite by duplicating our houses. So we're going to do this, and instead of animating, so let's first say that this is 0 and this is 100 VW and this is 200 VW, right? So what we are doing now is we are animating this from 0 to -50%, which is here. However, what we need to do is we need to animate it from 0 until it completely disappears from our view. And therefore, we are going to shift this by -200 VW. So at this point, this is going to be shifted by -200 VW. So let's explain here. Let's actually remove this for now. So if we have our houses here and we added a transform, translate x of -100 VW, this is going to be similar to -50%. However, if we shifted the translate x by -200 VW, the left edge of our div is going to be here at the, the right edge of our div is going to be at the left edge of the screen. Like so, right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to animate this first one from here to here. However, what we need to do for our clone is we're going to need to animate it not from 0, of course, however, from here, from 200 VW, also until negative 200 VW. So while this is animating, this is going to animate with it, like so that our houses are going to look infinite. So this is going to move, it's going to move with it, and so on, until this one reaches here. And at this point, this one should be here. Now what we need to do is we need to repeat this again. So we need, when this animation, the first one finishes, we need to move it back here. And remember, this one started from 0. However, when we repeat this, we're going to need to start it from here, from 200 VW. So that it will animate again, and while this animation is moving, this one is going to be moving with it. And when this one finishes, this one is going to be here. And what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to move this one from here to 200 VW again, so that it's going to be repeated again, and so on. Alright, so I hope that's clear. Let's now implement this. And actually, one more thing that I would like to mention here is when we clone our div, create this one, we're going to randomize these houses. So remember, in my folder, I have a lot of images for houses here. I have 9 houses. And initially, we are going to have 4 in our div. So when we clone this and create another 4, we're going to randomize them. And also, when our animation finishes, so when each one of these animations reaches this point, we are also going to randomize our houses so that when they run again from here to here, we're going to see different houses, so that we can have just some randomness. Right? Let's now do it. So I'm going to maybe remove everything here. And I'm going to paste some boring stuff here. I'm just importing street animation. We're going to use this. I'm also defining some constants here just to grab the divs. We're going to need the back houses wrapper and the houses wrapper. The houses wrapper is for the front houses, of course, and the back houses wrapper is for the back houses. And I'm also grabbing the houses inside the back house wrapper and the houses inside the front houses wrapper. Alright, so this is what I'm doing here. And I'm also pasting a function here, randomize houses, which is going to be responsible for randomizing the houses. So we pass it an element, and this element is going to be a div that contains houses. So in our case, one of these. We have some images here. Each image has a class of house. And what we're doing is we're looping through these images and just changing the source with a random house. So we are querying all of our houses, looping, and then for each image we're changing the source. And in my assets I have images of houses -1, -2, -3 until 9. So here is houses dash and then a random number from 1 to 9.png. And now let's get on with our animation. So remember, first of all, what we're going to need to do is we need, initially we only have one of these houses and we need to duplicate it. And when we duplicate it, we're going to need to animate this one from 0 until -200. However, this one, the second one, the clone that we're going to create, is going to be animated from 200 VW until -200 VW. However, when we repeat our animation again, the first one, remember, when this one reaches here, this one is going to be here. So when we repeat the animation for this one, it's not going to start from 0. However, it's going to start from 200 VW also. So it's only going to start from 0 initially. And then when we repeat our animation, it's going to start from 200 VW. So let's first do the cloning, and then we're going to do the animation. So I'm going to create a constant here. I'm going to call it front houses clone. And I'm going to clone my front houses using clone node. And now we are going to have a houses div, a new houses div that is cloned, and we need to randomize the houses inside of it. So we can just simply call our function randomize houses and pass it our clone. And then, of course, we need to put this in our wrapper so that we have two houses divs that we're going to animate like so. So we already grabbed the houses wrapper in this constant front houses wrapper, so we can just append to it our new clone, front houses clone. If we save this, we are going to have two houses. Of course, currently they are on top of each other. However, we're going to animate this one from 0 and this one from 200 VW. We're going to do exactly the same thing for the back houses as well. So let's do it. I'm going to actually duplicate this. However, change this to back houses clone and clone the back houses. And then randomize the back houses clone, and then we have our back houses wrapper. Let's append to it our back houses clone. So everything that we are going to do for the front houses, we're going to do for the back houses as well. And now I'm going to define a function that is going to be responsible for animating a houses div, so one of these houses divs. And we're going to call it recursively so that we can repeat our animation again when needed. So let's define a new function here. I'm going to call it animate houses. This one is going to receive the houses div that we need to animate. It's also going to receive the duration, and it's going to receive a boolean called shift. So what exactly is shift? So remember, as we agreed when we animate our houses, sometimes, or actually only one time initially, we are going to need to animate this from 0 to -200. However, when we repeat our animations, or when we animate the clone, we're going to animate from 200 to -200. So shift, by passing shift set to true, we're going to animate from 200. By passing shift set to false, we're going to animate from 0. And we're only going to do this initially. So let's create a constant here, call it houses animation. And we need to animate the houses that we get as an argument in the function. And we need to pass our array of keyframes. And now what we need to do is we need to transform to animate the transform property. However, I'm going to add a template literal here and translate X. I think I have a typo here. And this is going to be different based on whether shift is true or false. So let's add an expression here, and if shift is true, we're going to animate from 200. If it's false, we're going to animate from 0, and then let's add VW here. However, every time we're going to animate to -200 as we agreed, -200 VW of course. So let's add transform and then translate X -200 VW. And now let's pass the duration, which is going to be something that we are going to receive when we call the function. We're going to see what will be the value in a moment. However, let's also make our easing linear. And we're not going to make this animation infinite. Why? Because we need to know when our animation is going to be finished. And when our animation is going to be finished, we're going to repeat it ourselves. And we're also going to randomize the houses as well. So in the houses animation, in this animation object, we're going to have a promise in this finished property. So houses animation.finished. This is going to be a promise that is going to resolve when our animation ends. So in our case, when this div reaches here, this promise is going to resolve and we can do something. And what we need to do is we need to change the houses, randomize the houses, and animate this div again, however, this time from here, right? So let's do that, and we can do that by simply waiting for the promise to resolve. And then in here, we're going to receive a function with an event. And in the event, we're going to receive the target, which is the houses div that we are animating. And therefore, we can randomize the houses in it by calling event.effect.target. Or of course, we can just pass houses here in this function. This is going to be the same thing. And then we need to recursively call animate houses and animate the same houses div again, which lives here. However, this time we're going to pass the duration, and we're going to pass shift set to true, so that we can animate it from this shifted position when it is done. Alright, I think this is going to be our function, and now we need to just call our function, and we need to call it 4 times. So 1 time for this div, 1 time for this div. This one, for this original one, we're going to call it with shift set to false. For this one, we're going to call it with shift set to true. And we're going to call it a couple of more times for our back houses as well, right? So let's do it. Animate houses. And we're going to call it for the original front houses. And we're going to need to pass a duration here. So let's define a couple of constants, maybe this one, front houses duration, and let's just make it street animation dot duration dot effect dot get timing get computed timing duration for now, and we're going to see what we're going to set it to in a moment. And let's create another one for back houses. So let's pass here front houses duration. And for this original one, we're not going to set shift to true. However, need to duplicate this and call it for our clone. However, this time shift it set to true. And do exactly the same. However, this time for back houses and the back houses clone. And also let's use for the duration, the back houses duration constant that we created. Now if we save this, of course, as you can see, something is happening, however, it does not look exactly right. And this is because we need to set the duration here to something. So, what do we need our animation to look like? If we look at the finished example here, we need the front houses to be moving at the same speed as the street, right? Because it is very close to the street. However, for the back houses, we need to make it a little bit slower because, of course, they are further away. So, how to make the front houses have the same speed as the street? So remember, our street, which is this, when it moves from here to here, it covers 100 VW. It covers 100 viewport width. It moves from here to here. However, this div is going to cover 100 VW, 200 VW, and this is if we are animating from 0 to negative 200. However, if you are animating from 200 to negative 200, it's going to cover, this is 100 VW, this is 200 VW, 300 VW, and then 400 VW. So 4 times the distance that the street covers. So if we have our houses shifted, they are going to cover 4 times the distance of the street. If you are having the initial houses which is not shifted, they are going to cover 2 times the distance that the street covers. So we need to make our duration double the duration of the street if we are animating from 0. However, if we are animating from 200 VW, we need to make it 4 times the duration of the street so that they will look as if they are having the same speed. So in here, in the front houses duration, I'm going to multiply this times 2. And we are passing this to animate houses. However, if shift is set to true, we need to make it 4 times the street animation duration and not 2 times. So we can, in here, check if shift is set to true. We can multiply again by 2. So multiply duration by 2 again. Otherwise, just pass the duration. And if we save this, it's going to look like so. So let's refresh. As you can see, we have this houses div. As this one finishes, the other one is going to start. and as the other one finishes, the first one should start again, and so on. And also notice that if we open here, our houses are being randomized every time, so that we can just have some randomness. But now we need to do the same, of course, for the back houses. For the duration, we need to make the duration a little bit slower than the front houses. So let's multiply maybe the duration of the back houses to, let's try 3.5. And it's looking like so. I think this is fine. Maybe you can change it later. However, everything is looking fine for now. Or actually, let's try 3. Anyways, we can change this later. But what we need to do, one final thing for this video is when we unfocus from our window, from our animation, and go to a different tab like what we are doing here, the browser is going to try and optimize the animations. And sometimes when this happens, our animations can get out of sync. So as you can see, we have a gap here when we unfocus from our window. So to fix this, I'm going to do something. I'm going to pause all of our animations if we unfocus from the window. We don't need to play our animations anyways when we unfocus from our window, right? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this maybe in the index.js file. In here, I'm going to define a couple of functions, pause and play. And pause, of course, is going to pause all of our animations. Remember, we can get all of our animations using document.get animations. And we can loop through all of our animations. And we're going to have our animation objects, where we can call animation.pause. And the same thing we can do for play. So let's create a function, play, and loop and call play for each animation. And now let's add a couple of event listeners in our window. So when we focus and when we blur. When we blur, we need to pause our animation when we focus on another window. And of course, when we focus, we need to play our animations again. So let's call play. Now by having that, I'm going to unfocus by clicking on these developer tools. Looks like I think maybe we need to refresh. Yeah, so when I click on this developer tools, we're going to unfocus from our window. So our animation is paused. However, when I click again, our animation is going to play when I focus again on the window. So this can be a quick fix for this problem. And in our case, we actually don't need the animation to be playing when we are unfocused anyways, right? That's it for this video. Let's in the next video animate our foreground.